creating Canva-Sations, where ideas become inspiration. Creating branded, watch it grow. Your next big breakthrough starts right now. We're dreaming bigger every day, turning bold ideas into our way. So come on, join the celebration. Welcome to creating Canva-Sations. Let's create, let's inspire, let's innovate together. You're listening to Creative. Welcome to creating Canva-Sations. Our ideas become inspiration. Creative, branded, watch it grow. Your next big breakthrough starts right now. We're dreaming bigger every day, turning bold ideas into our way. So come on, join the celebration. Welcome to creating Canva-Sations.
Hey everybody, this is Yolanda Allen with Creating Conversations. I am super excited to be on this live stream today. This is my official launch of my first segment, and I'm excited to have an incredible special guest just to kind of give you some insight on what this platform is set up to be. I put this together to make sure that I'm able to provide and share content and information as it relates to creatives that I actually personally work with, and also providing a platform to share all the incredible things that I want others to learn about when it comes down to creativity. But on the other side of that, I also work along with incredibly talented people such as authors and people who are in the business space, who I want to make sure that I'm sharing their story and being able to incorporate them into my podcast. So again, everybody, I'm super excited to have this podcast live on today. But I have such an incredible special guest. This I want to say this young lady because I see her as an incredible person, and from the moment that I was introduced to her, she has literally been such a incredible wise person, and I enjoy being around people like that because the information they share with us gives us such incredible insight on how we should be viewing life. So she has a book that she's launching. We're having a book signing on Sunday, and I want to make sure that she's able to share her story. So I want to bring Mother Cecelia Williams Young to the platform. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. And
I'm excited to have you on this segment. I'm going to try my very best not to overly share information about this book because I want people to understand the significance because by them reading it for themselves, it was definitely impactful for me because I had planned on spreading the reading process out for a few days, and I managed to just read that book in 2 days because it was just that amazing. But I want you to share some information about who you are, and so that they can get an understanding of who my guest is for today.
great. Thank you so much, Sister Yolanda, for inviting me. And I'm doubly honored when I heard you say that this is your first broadcast. Thank you. What an honor to be the first guest of such an incredible platform. I know God's going to use it greatly to do exactly what you've already articulated you wanted it to do. But who is Cecelia Williams Young? I think the first thing I want people to know is that I am a child of God, that I live a Christian life. I live my life according to the Bible. And I think that's so important for me to say because a lot of times we'll, say that we're Christians, but we leave out the part of living it. So that's the most important thing to me is that I am a child of God and I do what I can, my best to represent my father. And I am a mother. I am a person who has been educated through certainly through the lower levels of our schooling, but also I have a both a bachelor's and a master's degree, and also qualified certified chaplain. Um, and out of all the titles that I have or roles that I fill, chaplain, um, I had my own shelter for women and children who were homeless and ended up taking in fathers because I found out that there were a lot of homeless fathers raising their children too. But out of all the titles that I have, the one that's closest to my heart is that of mother.
Mm.
Doesn't matter how old we get, as long as we're alive, we need the wisdom, the nurture, the hand touch, the embrace of mother. And that's all I'm going to say about me, who I am, because I think that's more than enough.
Well, I say you hold that role and responsibility well.
Mm,
I've just gotten the luxury of just being able to experience your family and how incredible they are as individuals. So it's definitely displayed through your children, and I can appreciate being around people like that because you want real people. You want to be around real people who are not just who they are when you're in front of them, but
mhm,
amplify that on every level um, throughout their walk with Christ. And so I'm excited to have you. And like I said, we want to talk about your book. It's called "Telling the Story: The Pathway to Freedom."
mhm,
And I, when I first read it, I would say I want to say when I got into the first few chapters, I knew then that I was going to finish the book.
mm,
Like I told you, it's definitely an easy read, such an easy read. But I found my space. I found where I related in this book. And I wanted to make sure that you were able to tell this story because I believe there's so many people who have experienced different forms of abuse, whether it's domestic violence, um, just in different ways that they've had to go through experiences like that and the challenges and the trauma. So I want to make sure I do not overly share
okay.
because I want people to get the feel of this book on their own. Um, so I want to make sure I want to stay on the title, but like I told you the other day, I want God to be the orchestrator of this conversation because
Mhm,
I believe if he does that, then the people they will get the message in this interview. So I want to first start off by first of all, you are the supervisor of Nigeria United Jurisdiction in Nigeria. And I want to give a shout out to those who are over in Nigeria because I see some people plugged into this live stream. I'm excited to have you on the stream on today just to be of a support to Mother Young and our endeavors over this weekend. But secondly, we want to definitely dive into this book. What inspired you to first of all write this story? I know sometimes we don't want to tell stories that people may not seem to they may shun against, but you literally went in and deep dive into the conversation about um, domestic violence and things like that. So, what was your purpose and what was your reasoning and your inspiration behind writing this story?
When I received the inspiration to write the story, I actually myself was in a situation of domestic violence,
Mhm,
and it happened to be one that was quite dangerous. Of course, all violence is dangerous, but nevertheless, I knew that if I did not acknowledge my truth,
mhm,
that if I covered it up and denied it and protected it for whatever reasons, which is
mhm,
often what we will do, is we don't want anyone to know what we're dealing with and we won't even admit it to ourselves. But I knew that if I was going to get free from the situation that I was living in, or I should
mhm,
say, um, about to die in, that I had to accept what was my reality, and not protect it and not protect my abuser. And another thing I wanted was to give voice to those who are um, suffering or enduring domestic violence, because
Mm.
I knew it was important towards freedom.
And I can totally admire and respect that, because a lot of times that's a conversation that, because of the guilt and how we feel about the
Mhm.
circumstances, we don't have those conversations. We don't share it with anyone because of our, sometimes we feel guilty or ashamed about it. And
Mhm.
then what we ultimately do is find ourselves preventing people who need to get those answers,
Mhm.
um, and or at least understand that they're not in this alone. We don't give them that vehicle to know that, hey, it's not just happening to me. And so just to be able to have the courage to talk about that in the book was so uplifting to me, because you'd be surprised how many people who experience domestic violence and sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and
Mhm.
they don't know who and what to, who to turn to in those cases, because they're shamed, because of the
Mhm.
shame behind it and the stigma and how people will perceive them and things of that nature. But when you decided to, like, write the book, like, what prompted you to say, you know what, I need to talk about this?
Mhm.
Um, because it takes a while when you're going through experiences like that. It takes a while for you to get to different levels of acceptance, acknowledgement, and then ultimately getting the help that you need. So, at
Mhm.
what pivoting moment did you make the decision? Hey, I need to have this conversation. I need to share it with the world so that they understand the significance of it, how dangerous it is, and that they can get help, ultimately at the end of the day.
Unfortunately, when I decided or realized that I should write this book, it was not my first time
Mhm,
experiencing domestic violence and abuse.
mhm,
Thank God for for the podcast, giving a platform for um, domestic violence to be talked about, so that more people can be enlightened, and also the I would say the aspects and
mhm.
tactics of abusers can be exposed.
Yeah.
I knew that it was important to uncover the what's that say the reality of abuse, because a
Mhm,
lot of times we will say, well, maybe that's not abuse,
mhm,
maybe um he hit me or she hit me or they kicked me or they punched me or they called me names and they were just upset, and we don't want to name it what it is. And
mhm.
I knew that it was important to identify abuse, to talk about the characteristics, the nature of abuse,
Mhm.
and also to take away any kind of cloak that would cover it, as well as to hopefully help others understand that it's not their fault. Because one
Mhm.
aspect or tactic of abusers is to be manipulative and to blame
Mhm.
the person that they are abusing, to make them feel guilty, and
Yeah.
psychologically, um, people abusers are able to convince the person that they are abusing, that the person they're abusing, that it is your fault. So I wanted to deal with the truth, to expose
Mhm.
what is the truth, and give support to people like I was,
Mhm.
living in abuse, give them support and help them to know you are not alone, you are not at fault, and this is not your destiny or the end for you, that there is indeed a pathway out.
Absolutely. And then, in that aspect, a lot of times we look at, um, domestic abuse and relabel it one thing, but there's so many different layers to that. It's more than just physical abuse. What are some other abuses that people experience, but don't necessarily label what it really is. Because I know obviously there's domestic violence, but there's other types of abuse that impacts people in different ways as well.
And there are aspects of domestic violence or abuse, like emotional abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, uh, even name calling. There's a very familiar slogan that we used to say even as children: sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And we grow up believing that, you know, name calling, which can be demeaning,
Mhm,
intimidating, degrading, but
mhm,
they're just words,
mhm,
But as I matured in life, and also as I matured as a Christian, as a child of God, and learning God's word, I came to understand that there is power in words.
yes, it is.
So God stepped out on nothing, and all
Mm,
he had to do was say the word, whatever word. It,
okay.
it, Emotional abuse, when people are calling you names, degrading you,
Mhm,
that attacks your mind, it attacks your self esteem, it does damage. It
mhm,
does damage to you. And psychologically, if the person is being manipulative, trying to place blame and guilt and
mhm,
shame on a person, and if
mhm,
the person who's being abused begins to own that,
mhm.
then psychologically, they're it causes damage. It's traumatic. Just like
Yeah.
if somebody took their fist and punched someone, you feel that blow physically.
Mhm.
And we mistakenly have thought, if you hit me, if you hurt me physically, then that's abuse or you've damaged me. But words can damage, they can bludgeon, name calling. Um, it's harmful, it's traumatic, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it goes back to I was mentioning to you the other day because there's domestic violence, there's the molestation, there's
Mhm,
different forms of these
mhm,
abuses. And like I said, when I started reading your book, I saw myself, I saw my story.
mhm,
And no, I didn't experience domestic abuse, but I went through a phase like at 12 and 13 years old where I experienced molestation. And
mhm,
I have parents, anybody that knows my parents, they have been like totally protective of their
mhm,
children. They have done an amazing job, in my opinion, when it comes to raising us and protecting us and preserving and trying to keep us out of the hands of different people who would ultimately take stances and do things of that nature. But it silences when you experience that. Like I said, I was 12 or 13, and you lose your voice, like
mhm,
lose the ability to really do and say the things that you would probably normally say without having those experiences.
mhm,
And it takes a lot away from you. And like I said, I really never even talked to them about it until I was like in my 20s. And the experience of losing your voice was major. I became this like yes person, so I didn't know how to say no and things like that. So I would like to know like what happens or what is a needed thing in order to. First of all, I believe we have to acknowledge it, whatever we
mhm.
have experienced, whether it's domestic abuse or whatever. It's like how do we get to that place where we acknowledge it and then get the help that we need to actually be able to effectively live life, and I mean live.
Yeah. Well, I would say that a person needs to feel safe.
Mhm.
Um, well, a person who's being abused needs to know that they are safe, that there's a safe place where they can share their truth.
Mhm.
And certainly the experience of being abused, especially for a child, I would say,
Mhm.
creates such fear and such terror. And
Yes.
because the perpetrator has attacked them in such a at such a vulnerable time in their life, when it causes, I think, even greater confusion and
Mhm.
affects their identity. Like, who am I? And what
Mhm.
authority do I have? What rights do I have? If I don't
Mhm.
have the right to say what happens to my body, you know,
Mhm.
um, that really will give them mis information about who they are and their worth. If someone
Absolutely.
can do with my body whatever they want, then I
Mhm.
have no rights. I can't say no.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't talk about this in the book, but I was a victim of incest,
Mm.
and it sets you up for being a people pleaser.
Mhm.
It sets you up for serving people in unhealthy, unrighteous kinds of ways
Mhm.
because you feel that you can't say no. I don't have the right to say no. You don't know your worth. You don't know your own
Right.
value. And you
Right.
talked about how your parents are stellar parents, just
Mhm.
the best parents. Many times, parents don't realize that their children are being, physically or sexually abused. And
Mhm.
one of the things that perpetrators do is they instill fear and they um, make them feel like, or they tell them, don't tell anybody. You know,
Right. Right.
whether they do it by being really cruel and threatening them, or whether they do it by saying this is our little secret, like it's something
Mhm.
good to protect. Um, so sometimes people say, "Well, where were the parents?" Nevertheless, oftentimes parents have no idea of what's going on. So that's a whole nother topic. That parents,
Listen, I
we,
know, right?
we got to be vigilant. We've got to be discerning. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. Hmm.
And so, anybody and everybody who's on this live segment, I would love for you to make sure that you are sharing, liking, commenting, because I want people to be able to access this information on this live stream. So, if you're following, please share this live stream on your page, so we can make sure that as many people get the understanding or get connected to this conversation, because at the end of the day you want to ultimately help somebody, and
Yeah.
sometimes these type of conversations will help to do that. And so I want to go into a space, because I said this is one area I'm going in today. um, Spiritual leaders in abuse is a topic that was in your book,
Hmm.
and that is leadership could be in different capacities. What does spiritual leadership abuse look like? Like, how is that something that it's definitely existing. It definitely exists. Um, how does that impact on a different level when it comes down to abuse?
Okay, I want to clarify too that um, although we're talking about spiritual abuse and we're talking about spiritual leaders, um, our spiritual leaders are not always people that are in our faith system. It can also be a partner who
Mm-hmm.
uses it or a parent. Spiritual abuse occurs when someone uses spiritual or religious beliefs or practices their titles to manipulate,
Mm-hmm.
control, demean, or isolate another person. And it is rooted in the same thing that all abuse is rooted in: power and control. It is
Mm-hmm.
frequently perpetuated by religious leaders or an intimate partner or within high control groups. We've seen it even, of course, we've seen it in the church. We've seen it in the church or the synagogue. And many years ago, when it was revealed that many boys had been sexually abused in the Catholic Church, people
Mm-hmm.
were like, oh my goodness, they just thought this was a Catholic thing,
Mm-hmm.
that just happened in the Catholic Church. But spiritual abuse is not always sexual, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
it crosses. Let me say it's a human um, factor. It's not just related to one denomination,
Right.
um, or one sect of people or one ethnic group. Um, but uh, anyway, I feel I answered the question. It's when someone with in spiritual a leader uses religious beliefs or practices or their title, their position, um,
Hmm.
to control and demean someone. And let me say it's for their own selfish gain.
Right,
There's
right.
nothing godly about it or nothing that lifts up um, a higher level of being and living.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. And I'm going to circle back just a little bit as it relates to, I'm going to go back to the domestic violence.
Hmm.
In the book, you were talking about how sometimes you can experience that in a sense, and then people don't understand, like, why don't you just get out?
Hmm.
Like, why are you staying in that situation?
Hmm.
What causes people to stay in those type of environments and situations when they know that that's something that is not good for them? But what makes a person stay in a situation like that, knowing that they're being abused?
There are many different reasons why persons stay in a domestic violence situation.
Hmm.
Um, for example, it could be for financial security. They
Hmm.
may feel like, how will I survive if I don't stay? You
Hmm.
know, my rent's tied to this. My food, my physical um, existence or is tied to this. And if there are parents, many people stay because of the children.
Hmm.
How will I provide for my child and myself? What will it look like if my child comes from a broken home? Not
Hmm.
realizing that when children live in abuse, it also um, informs who they are. It
Hmm.
models for them what relationships should be like. Um, and it just has so many ramifications. Another thing is that the danger, fear. A person who is an abuser, oftentimes uses fear to control the person who they are abusing, and that person may be afraid to leave. And also, statistics tell us, not just statistics, but the truth is that many people die. The most dangerous time for a person who lives in abuse is when they're leaving. So,
Mm.
so when people say, "Well, why don't they just leave?" They don't understand that it's very dangerous to leave. You have to have a strategic plan, a safe way to exit out of such situations. And many people have died, you know, trying
Hmm.
to leave. Yeah.
Wow. And we see examples of that when
Yes.
we see things on the news. We see examples of what that is, and sometimes we can prejudge it, not
Mhm.
really understanding that it's not that a person wants to be in those circumstances, but sometimes they
Mhm.
don't have a way
They don't know
out.
what.
And
Mhm.
yes, and a lot of times we make judgment, and I'm really would appeal to people that see things like that, whether it's on the news or on social media, that we're so quick to pass judgment
Mhm.
on an individual, not really understanding like what they're going through, and so we
Mhm.
have to be mindful about the comments that we make, the things that we say, because we don't understand the dynamics behind the scenes. So
Mhm.
just being a little bit more passionate or considerate about different things that are going on, so we can understand that it could be you
Yes.
in a situation like that. So um,
Yes.
I I would encourage everybody. I think I have a link on here to get this book. Like I said, my intention, I had purposely, when you gave me the book, I wanted to just say, oh, I'm going to read it for this amount of time. I'm going to spread it out and read. No, that book was so intriguing. It was necessary for me, and I believe there are other people that can benefit from the message that you're giving to us as to what these abuses look like, how to address them, things we need to be watching for. It could be a family member or people that you're connected to that you may not even realize that they're going through these different experiences. And sometimes we don't even know how to handle it, how to address it. But just to just read the book.
Mhm.
Anybody and everybody that, if you, not even if you purchase it just for yourself, purchase this book for somebody else that you can help, that may be experiencing different types of abuses, because on a personal level and on a spiritual level, you talk about what we need to do and how you were able to, through your connection with God, to make those transitions
Mhm.
into a different lifestyle. And sometimes we don't know what to do and what that looks like and who to reach out to and how to reach God in moments like that, so that we can transition from where we are in different situations like that. So um, you can go ahead, because I don't know.
And does God care?
Mm-hmm,
That was one of the questions for me,
mm-hmm,
because in church I was told, or we're told, to pray,
mm-hmm,
and God's going to change the situation. I was told that scripture was taken out of context
mm-hmm,
and applied to my situation, and the spiritual mothers would say, "Well, as long as he is providing," they would say, "Does he pay the rent? And is he paying the utilities? Does he buy the food and all this stuff?" They say, "Well, the scripture says that if a man doesn't work, let him not eat. If he doesn't take care of his family, he's worse than an infidel." And they say that there's nothing in scripture that talks about domestic violence and physical, abuse. And so, me trusting these leaders and thinking, well, you know, yeah, I've got to try to do what God wants me to do. I've got to stay here till death do us part. I've got to, pray, and that he's going to be sanctified by, if I live sanctified, he's going to be sanctified through the sanctified, wife or whatever. And to get to know God, that's one of the things I encourage in the book. I talk about my pathway to intimacy with God and getting to know the God of the Bible, and not
mm-hmm,
having borrowed theology. Not,
mm,
theology is the nature of the relationship between God and a human being. So to
mm-hmm.
have your own experience with God, so you can have your theology of how God, what is God's perspective? How does God really
Yeah,
feel about me? Um, I want to say that I also wanted it to be that the book was not traumatizing
right.
to people who were already traumatized,
Mm-hmm,
that it would not be that it wouldn't be re-traumatizing to them, or traumatize people who were not enlightened about domestic violence or any kind of violence. That
mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be something that they could read and they could get the understanding of, and not feel like, oh my God, I'm traumatized by just hearing what domestic the violence is, or some of the specifics of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm hoping, my prayer is that those who experience this book finds that exit, finds that safe space, finds the route that they're going to need to take to ultimately get their lives back and be restored in a way that it allows them to actually live. There was a part, and I'm going to try to make sure I don't go too far because I want people to read this book, where you talked about when you write, like I got a notebook when I kind of got in a space where I wanted to understand like why I
Mhm.
was moving the way I was moving. I got a notebook and I started journaling and writing this thing down, so I could just try to navigate
Mhm.
myself and see like what is going on that's making me go through this space in my life and go through these relationships that weren't healthy for me and
Oh.
things like that.
Mhm.
So I started writing it down. But what I did was I wrote it down. I saw the problem, but I didn't get the help. So you
Mhm.
see it, you acknowledge that this is what's going on, but we still have to get to a place where we get that help that we need to be able to get out of
Mhm.
those circumstances and move in life in a healthy way.
Mhm.
So I would tell and encourage any and everybody. This is my plea to you to make sure you get this book. It will not only bless you, but it will bless other people who may be in situations or circumstances that they need someone to kind of walk them through what getting out of a situation looks like, or what talking about situations like this looks like, and how it's going to impact their lives in a much more positive way. And I appreciate the fact that you made sure that You didn't leave God out of this conversation because you need to be able to build a solid relationship. And I'm not talking about a relationship with God that looks like familiar with everybody else, but what does your relationship with Him look like? And how is that going to help you to be that better person that you need to be in circumstances like that? Because it is doable,
Mhm.
can be fixed. But how does your walk with God look like? And how does your walk with yourself in making those changes, what that needs to look like? So, you all make sure y'all get this book. Just I can't even stress it enough, not just for yourself, but for people that you know will benefit from it. Get this book. And I promise you, you will, from the beginning to the end, you will see you'll see yourself or you'll see circumstances like that where it can help somebody and bless somebody else. So do you have first of all, I want to let people know we want to talk about your book signing on Sunday. Could you give us some information about that?
Okay. Well, Sunday at here in the city of Milwaukee, at Mason Temple Church of God in Christ,
Mhm.
I will be having my first book launch, and I will be signing books for those who do purchase the book. It will be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and immediately following worship service, I want to invite you to come to worship at 10:45, um, and you're going to receive a double blessing. But that's basically it. The book will, it will be my first, as I said, um, book launch and book signing, and
Okay.
so
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. Again, you all, the information's on the bottom. It's going to be on Sunday between the hours of 1 and 2:30 at Mason Temple Church of God in Christ. The address is listed below. It's 6098 North 35th Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53209. And for those of you who are not in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, go online and purchase the book. Purchase this book. I will be also following those who have purchased the book. And on Sunday, after the book signing, I'm going to do a drawing for. I'm always going to be doing my 2 night, 3 day hotel stay giveaway. I'm going to do a drawing for those who have purchased this book, and I'll post it after two. I'll probably post it in the afternoon, like who won the drawing. But that is my way of encouraging you to make sure you get this book because I promise you you'll be blessed by it, not only just for yourself, for others. I particularly prefer the hardcover book. I love the other one, but this one, I don't know. I just really like the hardcover book. So she'll have some books that she will be signing at the book signing. So you'll get a personal message from her directly on Sunday afternoon, this Sunday. Any closing comments you would like to make?
okay. First, again, let me just say thank you so much for inviting me and for giving me this opportunity to share from my heart about this book. I want to say to those of you who are listening that I do hope that you will get the book. I want to tell you that there is healing in the book. There's
Mhm.
healing in there.
Yes.
And there it is really a pathway to freedom for those who have been abused or and I hope for abusers. I hope some abuser will read it and realize. I also want to say, although we didn't talk about this, men are also abused. And there is a
Yes.
chapter in the book. It's called Men Too. And men
Hmm.
suffer in silence. And I won't go into details of why, because we put so much expectation on them to be what we call is strong, whatever that is. But so I want to say that that domestic violence, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, any type of abuse, it's not gender specific. Um, it's a human um, disease,
Yeah.
and so that's what I want to say. I want to say that. Lastly, I want to say that God is love,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
are the object or the subject of His love.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful you brought that up because I did not want to leave that out because we do oftentimes only relate it to us as women, but that is correct. It does affect men.
Mhm.
And to be able to have that conversation so that people are not stuck not wanting to talk about it from a male perspective, they're being abused in different ways as well. It could be domestic and molested. It's happening on both levels. So I'm glad you brought that up because we don't want to leave them out of this conversation. But I again encourage everybody to get the book. Get the book for yourself, get the book for someone else so that you can be a blessing to other people and that they can see the importance of being aware of how to address and how to deal with these situations and these circumstances, not just on a personal level, but on a spiritual level, so that they can become whole overly over in an over a huge way and to get past these problems so that they can actually live life, so I'm excited. I'm grateful that you took the time to be on this segment. Again, this was my first segment, so you were taking a chance on me.
Thank you.
um,
And thank you, Apostle Finley from Connecticut, my girlfriend, Apostle Finley. And also, I want to say that this smile that I have,
mhm.
this joy that I have, you can be made whole.
Yes,
You can, and
yes.
you can be healthy and happy, and you don't have to be bitter and bound by the scars and the damage that was done from domestic violence. There is life, joy, peace, and wholeness beyond abuse.
Absolutely. And thank you so very much for being on this segment today.
You,
Until next time, I know we're going to probably reconvene and talk about the aftermath or the results from this book. But again, thank you for being on this segment. I appreciate it so very much. And you all make sure that you're going online to purchase the book. I'll put the link in the comments. And then also, for those who are not here, but then the ones who are here, make sure you stop by on Sunday to see her. We're going to have her set up so that she can be available to not only just share the book, but share some wisdom with you because she is a wise, wise woman. And I appreciate just being in her presence and just to be around and be around and just listen to her conversation. It does you great when you're around wise people. It really does. It blesses your spirit and your soul, and it gives you something to look forward to. So thank you for being on the segment. Until
thank
next time, you
you.
all, I have some more segments that will be coming up. I'll have them posted and we'll just keep you all informed of what's coming up next because there's going to be more from creating conversations. You can believe that. And until next time, you all have a blessed day and just make sure that you're embracing someone and showing love because it's definitely needed in our time and day. So we will be just to kind of remind you that with creating conversations, this platform is going to be a combination of talking to people about um, real life stories and from artists, from authors, business professionals. But then I'll also be having segments that I'll be showing you some of my creative skills because I love to create and keeping you informed on workshops, things that you can learn how to do to help build your business brand. And so thank you all so very much for being on this segment. Until next time on Creating Conversations, you all have a great day.
Shout out to Pastor Connie in Pennsylvania. Wow. Isn't that wonderful? People came on from other states.
Hey, come on in. It's time to create. Big dreams don't have to wait. Got an idea? Let's make it real. This is a place where vision is revealed. From your first sketch to your biggest brand, we'll build your future hand in hand. One great idea can change inspire. Let's innovate together. You're listening to Creative. To Creative.